appreciate the opportunity to stand before you today and to enjoy this meal. And I want to say, first of all, and I guess I had a lot to learn upon coming here. I was not aware of the school's religious affiliation and the history of the school. I was grateful to learn that. And I was not aware across the board what the foundation does for this particular school, and had the opportunity to visit with some of the members beforehand. And I just want to say thank you to this foundation for what you do to support the staff here, to support the purpose of what's going on here. And so for that, I'm grateful. Steve said a lot about me, but I'll tell you, he didn't say two things. When people introduce me, you know, a lot of times public speakers, they have long lists of accomplishments and degrees, and if you're not careful, you get lost in all of that. So I boil it down very easily with who I am. Number one, I am a redeemed sinner, and God's been better to me than I've ever been to Him. He blessed me with a wonderful wife, Erin, who's a hard-working, I would say a stay-at-home mom, but she's a make-at-home mom, who is a travel agent, full-time literally, specializing in Disney. And then she also homeschools our 4 children. So she is by no means sitting at home making, eating peanut butter bonbons. She is a hardworking lady who holds my feet accountable, even as a gospel preacher. And I am grateful. God has been better to me than I've ever been to Him. I tell people also the second thing about me, and it's really easy to remember by the 3 Bs. I am a big man. If you cannot see that, there's something wrong with your eyes, not with me. I've always been a big child. My parents used to shop at the Husky section of Walmart and buy men's jeans and cut them down, right? I was the offensive lineman that had to have the black X on top of the helmet. So when I touched the ball was dead. I couldn't even advance a fumble, right? I'm one of 3. We're all big boys. I'm the middle child. I struggle with the middle child syndrome. Very shy and reserved. My older brother is a teacher up in Wisconsin at a branch of the University of Wisconsin. My younger brother played in the NFL for 11 years. We are all big boys. They joke and said they put Miracle Grow in our oatmeal. So number 1, I am a big man. Number 2, I am a bald man. You're going to catch on to something here. They're all going to start with B's. All right? I am a bald man. Started losing my hair at the age of 16. I come by it naturally. I thought about Rogaine, and then I looked at the price tag and said, you've got to keep doing that or else it just falls back out. And so my wife said, Joe, why don't you just shave what God didn't already take out? I said, that's a great idea. A woman who loves a beard and a bald head? I lucked out twice, right? I never have a bad hair day. Never take a bad picture either. I'm always in shape. It's round, right? Number 3, though, I want you to know this. I am a beautiful man. I tell that to people. All right, so you're going to help me back just to make sure you're listening. Tell me what the 3 B's are. Number 1, you are a big man. Number 2, you are a number 3, you are a Thank you so much. The only reason I throw that last one in there is to get affirmation from the audience. Thank you. You have affirmed me by calling me beautiful today, and I appreciate that. That's who I am. That's who I am. God's using me for whatever purpose and for whatever reason, and I'm grateful that He is. And I'm excited that He's using me in this moment for whatever it is. You know, I'm a pretty simple guy. I actually believe that sometimes we can make things too complicated. I'm not here to use this on anyone. We can make things too complicated. And sometimes when we make them complicated, it sounds good in books and it sounds good in the world of academia, but when people leave, they leave and say, I don't know exactly what he said. He spoke over my head, or he wasn't speaking into my life. He was speaking into somebody else who knows Greek or Hebrew or whatever else. And so I'm a pretty simple guy, all right? Your name is Joe. I mean, that's pretty simple, right? My parents couldn't even get creative. Somebody hears the name Joe, too, and you're like, he just insulted my parents. Yes, I did, and I don't even know your parents, right? But the idea is this. Sometimes if we keep it simple, it works. I have a couple things that I brought with me, and there's no way that I can sit this up because the frame has already become detached. For those of you who cannot see this, it is a picture of a little baseball team of 9- and 10-year-old boys. This sits in my office at the church building, and it's signed around it by little boys' handwriting, right? Little boys' handwriting. You see a younger version of me, still good looking there. You see my son, who's standing right in front of me, and then you see a lot of other boys that we were blessed to work with in that moment. Now, on that little picture in my office also hangs this little medal. I couldn't tell you what this metal is made of, and chances are I could probably break it pretty easily. But on the back of it, it says Rangers. That was the name of the team. 2014 Miners Champs, Coach Joe. Now you would look at that and say, Joe, most of probably your awards that you got when you were growing up, they are either under the bed in a box, right? Or if you're like me, you left them at your parents' house. And when you got married and moved on, your parents called and said, hey, when do you want these back, right? And you said, I really don't want them back. And so your parents held on to them for a while until they threw them away, right? That's where mine are, with the exception of, for some reason, I kept a 1986, when I played for Brooks and Killen growing up, I kept that one, and a 1988 trophy. And you know what I use them for today? When I speak to youth at youth events or family seminars and things, I will bring those and to show people how at one point in time, the things that we thought were so important in our life, they don't matter anymore. Oh, you should hear it when I talk to teens. I brag about my 9th grade year in high school. Do you know you're looking at the senior president of his high school? I was the president of the senior class. I was voted Snowball King. I lettered numerous times, was in the Junior Honor Society and the National Honor Society. And when I do that, I put my old Letterman jacket on and I talk to the kids. You know what they see? They see an overweight bald man bragging about what used to be. That's what they see. And I use that point to teach that, you know what, it's funny how priorities change. It's funny how our definition of success changes. Would you agree with that? You know, the things that we thought used to make us successful in our teenage years, so if I could only do this, if I could only get into that school, those were markers along the way of success. But I will tell you this now, as a father of 4, and as a guy who's trying to be the husband that my wife deserves, my markers of success are much different. As I grow, my markers change. And along the way, what's going to happen is, and I know this and you know this, is that you're going to look at moments in your past and you're going to say, those were markers that got me along the way to where I am now, to the point that if that moment comes and God lets me live that long, that I'm rocking on the front porch in a chair with my wife and I reach over and I grab her beautiful wrinkled hand and I say, look at this life that we've been able to enjoy together. Then we're going to look back at moments along the way of success. But our definition of success, it may have evolved over the years. It may have changed over the years. And so I want to keep it simple today. I bring a baseball bat and I bring an award from 2014 of a medal that probably should have been thrown away. I'm not even sure my own son has his medal from that team. And I bring a picture signed by a bunch of little boys, and here's why. Because on that team, there was a little boy named Logan. And Logan, quite honestly, as a coach, he was the player that I wanted to hide somewhere in the lineup. I don't know how else to say that. You say, Joe, that's horrible. They were 9 and 10 years old. Oh, yeah, I know that. But you still had to hide him, right? You put him in the outfield because you knew he had a heart to play, but he didn't necessarily have the skill set to excel. Right? So he wasn't going to go in the infield because that's where all the guys would go who could handle the ball. And I couldn't put him at first because that guy had to be able to catch the ball every time it was thrown. And he wanted to pitch so bad. But, you know, there was a part of me going, how can I do that to the other kids? You're going, we don't like you. We started liking you. We don't like the way you're talking. Well, hold on, right? I have an hour. I'm not done yet. I'm not going to take an hour. My man said till 3:30, right? Is that what you said? Right? But let me tell you something about Logan that he forever changed who I am. Logan was afraid of staying in the batter's box. You ever met a kid who was afraid of staying in the batter's box? It didn't matter if the pitch was so far away from him, he would always fall out of the batter's box. He was so afraid that he was going to get hit that instead of even staying in there to let the umpire call a ball, you see, when you step out of the batter's box, it's called an automatic strike when the pitcher throws the ball, as long as it gets to the catcher. It's an automatic strike, and we would say, Logan, just stay in the batter's box. Don't fall out. And it didn't matter. Every time the ball could have been over where the parents were sitting, and Logan would have backed out of the box. And so eventually what we did is we took a baseball bat, not to Logan, okay? Don't worry about that. But we put it behind his feet on the ground. And the whole purpose for that was this: next time he was going to fall out of the batter's box, he was going to fall down. You said, that's horrible that you would let one of your team fall? Oh, he needs coddled. He's a 9-year-old. Don't you know if he falls down on his backside that he'll probably cry and never amount to anything in his life? And I would offer this to you: if I continued to let him bail out of the box, it was going to affect him a whole lot more than a little dust on the back of his baseball pants. And so what I did is I said, Logan, I'm going to help you. And I put a bat behind his feet to where if he stepped out, his cleats would have caught the bat would have rolled, and he would have gone down. And I got to tell you something, Logan went down a couple times. And you know what he did every time? He got back up. He got back up and he got back in the box. And I said, Logan, you're going to get it this time. This is the time you're going to get it, right? I would love to tell you that it only took 2 or 3 times for Logan to get it. Logan didn't get it. There's a reason I had to hide him in the field. There's a reason it was difficult, because then it became one of those things that the other parents were going, Coach, what do you do? I mean, I hate to say this, but Little League coaches can be some of the absolute worst coaches to deal with. I've coached middle school ball, and I'd rather coach middle school than Little League. And the idea was this: the parents of the kids who actually were doing it, they were thinking every time he got up, oh dear, this kid's hurting my kid. You know what, as a coach, I had to take a reality check, and I had to learn a lesson. I thought this is not about baseball. This is about Logan. You see, and that's one of the things that I want to drive home to you this afternoon, is that when you start thinking about success, instead of speaking to it from a standpoint of, I want you to achieve success as a group, right? And I know the university wants that. And ultimately, if any organization is going to succeed, it's because everybody works together in their part, in their department, to achieve what they must achieve. And I will tell you this, here's a little secret. A congregation is the same, right? Everybody must be doing their part. If only 20% of the people are doing 80% of the work, then the congregation's going to fail. And the same way with a university, the same way with a business that I might speak to, that your part is valuable, right? And so there's a team concept. But I want to speak, if you'll allow me, some truth into your life, or maybe just remind you something. You probably already know this. And that is this, that you also have a success story individually. And that success story begins by you focusing in on what the success is. I have in my notes, you must secure your success. And I don't know how you define success in your life. Sometimes we define success based upon a paycheck. And I remember that Aaron and I used to, at one point in time in our life, we did that. It was when we were younger and maybe we only had 1 child or 2 kids. I will tell you this, Aaron and I were the best parents when we only had 2 kids. I mean, we were those young people, I could tell you exactly how to raise your kids when I only had 2. And then God gave us number 3, right? And it was a 4-year difference between child 2 and child 3, and my deal was no stragglers. You know, no stragglers, and so we had to have a child 4. You know why I don't have 5? Because I don't know how to feed 6. Because there's no 5. It would be 6, right? And so the idea is this, that we learned a lot about life when we went from child number 2 to child number 3. We learned a lot about life when we went into child number 4. And one of the things that I learned was this, that my success that I had to hone in on was crucial. It was crucial for me individually, but it was also crucial for my family. You see, I've made my life pretty easy. I have 2 main goals, and my kids can tell you what those goals are for our family. My number 1 goal is to go to heaven. Along the way, I want to take as many people there with me as possible. Whatever happens outside of that is like cherry on top of the sundae, but it's not the sundae. If those 2 goals are met, and I'll be real with you, if I can hone it down and I can look at my kids and I can rejoice in eternity one day because my kids are believers and faithful, then I'll say this, regardless if everybody knew what my name was or not, it doesn't matter. I was faithful to what God called me to be within my family. You see, my success has been narrowed. And you say, Joe, is that too narrow? It wasn't too narrow for the Apostle Paul. And I'm going to offer this to you. It's not too narrow for you either to decide where your success is going to be. You see, with Logan, When I looked at it, the success that I wanted him to achieve was don't fall out of the batter's box. That's what I wanted him to achieve, but it wasn't really even about the batter's box. It was about confidence. It was about him understanding that the pitch may be thrown and he may be hit by it every now and again, and it may sting, but that's okay, because even in that moment, he gets to go to first base. But if he keeps falling out of the batter's box, then that's only going to continue to degrade him, because he's already falling out because he's scared. He's scared. And so I looked at him and I said, you know what? This isn't about making him like every other player. Sometimes we do that, don't we? We try to make my success your success, and therefore, if this is how I define success, then you must define success in the same way. And if I do that to Logan, I'm going to hold him accountable for a kid on our team named Joey who's playing travel ball now as a teenager and who could hit the ball almost to the fence, if not out of the fence. He was throwing the ball between 9 and 10 years of age, probably in the 60s, maybe lower 70s. I mean, that's not fair on Logan. And so I stopped trying to make him like Joey, and I said, let's just focus on this. If I don't accomplish anything in his life this season, then let's accomplish him not falling out of the batter's box. And so what I did was this. I secured a success for him, right? Now, here's what I didn't know, and this is point number 2. In order to achieve success, you must personalize your passion. You see, sometimes passion drives us to succeed or not. I can know what the success is and know what the marker is, but if I'm not passionate about it, guess what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to put forth my best effort. And you and I have seen that in various capacities. If you're a leader of one of the divisions here, one of the departments, you may come together and have a meeting of this is our goal, this is our drive. But if everybody else within your staff doesn't buy into it and they are not passionate about what your dream is that you put forth, then you're going to only get a certain level of work. That's just a reality. And so part of being a leader is not just coming up with the plan, but part of being the leader is inspiring other people towards your passion, towards your goal, right? And in some capacity, you have that even with the people that you work beside, who are sitting beside you. But individually, we have that as well. I thought it was an interesting quote from Steve Jobs. He said, if you're working on something that you really care about, you don't have to be pushed because the vision pulls you. And I thought, that is powerful. Because how much time do we spend banging our head off of the wall because we don't understand why everybody else is not buying into the end goal? Is it possible that you didn't fail to describe the end goal, but you failed to inspire passion in those whom you want to help you reach the end goal? Truth is, sometimes we can misread passion. And we can assign success to somebody, and all the while, it's not their success. You see, I thought Logan's problem was that he was falling out of the batter's box. I thought that was his problem, that he was falling out of the batter's box. And so therefore, my concern was he was going to grow up and be timid and be afraid and not be that leader that his family would need one day. And so I assumed that I knew what his success would be. You see, there came a time, though, within the course of that season that I guess this was the point that changed me, is Logan had a brother on the team who exceeded very well. And Logan's dad was one of the unofficial assistant coaches. Logan's dad played college baseball. Logan's dad and mom were divorced. Logan's dad really only had anything to do with Logan and his brother when it involved what Dad's interest was. So guess when Logan saw his dad? At the baseball diamond. This whole time I thought Logan's success was going to be defined whether he stayed in the box or not. One point in time, Logan and I'll never forget it, he came over to the side. He was crying. And I got down on a knee. And I looked at him. I said, Logan, what's going on? This is just you and me. And he poured his heart out. That had nothing to do with the box. It had everything to do with whether his dad would be proud of him. His success was not staying in the box. It was, I don't get enough of my dad anyhow. And when I do get him, my brother's showing me up. I'm falling out of the box. I'm striking out. And I couldn't tell you how many times I saw Logan walk back to the dugout with his head held low. You see, I misread his success because I didn't let him define the success. And therefore, I misread how to inspire passion. And so I learned that valuable lesson that day that I've got to do more listening than I have to do telling. And as a preacher, I will tell you this, that's something that I've struggled with, that you've got to do more listening than you have to do telling, because some of us don't know when to be quiet, right? Steve, be quiet. Please don't say amen to that, okay? Some of us don't know when to be quiet. And we don't know how to listen. That day, I learned a valuable lesson that I can't define his success for him, and I cannot help him personalize his passion if I don't know what drives him. Number 3, I would offer this to you when it comes to what I've learned through these young men in my life, and that was this. You must hold fast to hope. Because if you give up hope that things can be different and things can be better, then you'll walk away. I'm so impressed that Logan didn't quit halfway through the season. I really believe he didn't because his mother threatened him, quite honestly, but I'm glad then that she held his feet to the fire and said, you're going to finish what you started, right? Because I think Logan would have just been happy walking away to another part of life and saying, you know what, that just wasn't me, I wasn't successful, Dad's going to have to love me and pay attention to me for something else I do in my life other than baseball. And if he'd have done that, I got to tell you, I couldn't blame him. He would have been right. Dad needed to step up. But he didn't quit. And you know what he kept doing? He kept coming to practice, and he kept putting the bat behind his feet. And along the way, eventually, he started to change. Not change just in the fact of did he fall out of the batter's box or not. Logan became one of the biggest trash talkers on the team. You've seen Babe Ruth and those movies where Babe would get up there and he would call a shot, right? Logan, by the end of the season, was calling a shot. Now, did he ever hit the ball? That was beside the point. He was calling a shot. And he would stand up there when the pitcher would throw him in. I really thought he was going to get thrown out of a couple games. The pitcher would throw the ball, and Logan basically would look at him and say, is that the best you got? Come on! You know, and he'd get up there and get ready. And you know what the pitcher would do? The pitcher would throw the ball and strike him out. But as a coach, I looked at that and I had to grin, because that told me something. There was a change from the little boy that cried in the corner to the little boy who was willing to stand there in front of everybody and call a shot. And the only thing that changed was, I firmly believe, is that he started to see that things could be different. You know, I don't know if you've ever heard of an individual by the name of Eugene Lang. Eugene Lang was a very prominent businessman, and I'm not going to attest for how he made his money. But sometimes in America, prominent individuals who make a lot of money are invited to speak, especially at impoverished areas. And Eugene Lang was invited to speak at Public School 121 in East Harlem to the class of 1981 when they were graduating from 6th grade into 7th grade. And the story is told about Eugene Lang. When he got up to the podium, he had his notes all ready to go. And he stood there and he looked over the crowd. And you got to understand, this crowd was a crowd of individuals that are not unlike some communities. Children believe that they're never going to achieve more than what their parents were. My mother is an educator in Tennessee and works in an area that fits to a T. Why should I ever become more than my parents were? They dropped out in 11th grade. Why would I ever become more than what they are? And as an educator, that plays into the difficulty that she sees. She's a special education teacher. And that plays into a lot of the difficulty that she encounters is expectations, right? And so Eugene Lang stepped in front of a podium to an audience that their graduation rate was 50%. 1 out of every 2 of those kids would not graduate high school. He threw his notes, he wadded his notes up, and the story is told that he threw them aside, or he placed them aside. And he looked out at the audience and he just said this, which I could only imagine. They maybe like you are saying, I'm glad he didn't go very long. You're saying, when's he going to be quiet, right? He said this, if you'll graduate high school, I will pay for your college. Story goes on to tell that those children who he made that promise to, graduating from 6th grade to 7th, that 90% of them graduated high school. And he followed through with his promise. Now here's my question that I ask people. Why? What made the change? And the only conclusion that I have is this. They had hope that they could be more. When you know how to hold on to hope, it'll change you. And the neat thing about walking a Christian life, a neat thing about even struggling to decide where you're going to go in your life with your career and your employment is this. If you believe that your past is always going to define your future, then you're never going to hold on to hope. If you don't believe that tomorrow is not written yet and that you can actually excel and make more of your circumstance tomorrow than you did today, then you do not understand what God has placed before you. He's given you an opportunity not just to define what your success is and not just to couple it with passion, but He's given you an opportunity to hold on to the fact that He's not done yet. You see, Logan, he grasped a concept, and that concept was this: things can change and things can be better. And so I will offer this to you as my fourth point on the pave the way to success. Not only is it secure your success, personalize your passion, hold fast to hope, but it's finalize your finish. I thought this quote was interesting. To succeed in life, you need not only initiative, but also finishative. I don't know if that's in the words or language or not, but it made sense to me. I can have an initiative about a lot of things, right? I know that being a big man eventually will cause me health problems. But that still doesn't change whether or not I ate a piece of that cheesecake. And some of you have gone to the doctor lately and you're on high blood pressure meds and cholesterol meds, and guess what? You're relating right there with me, okay? So I'm not the only one, right? Sometimes we don't get the finishative. We have a lot of initiative and we reward initiative. But in order to be successful, and I'm not talking about successful as a group, I'm talking about in your success story, then there's got to be an element of finishative. You've got to see it through. You've got to go the distance. You've got to finish the race. John D. Rockefeller Jr. said this: the secret of success is to do the common things uncommonly well. If you want to succeed, then don't wait on that pinnacle moment. Work on the foundational moments. You do those foundational things well. When somebody calls your particular department, and if you're the one that answers the phone, don't you ever forget that the way you respond to them is not just a reflection upon the school, but it's a reflection on you. Do the small things well. Uncommonly well is what he said. Logan eventually got that point. And I'm glad to say that in all the things that I would teach our kids, in playing baseball, I would teach them at times how to hold the bat. That seems like a fundamental thing, doesn't it? You hand the bat to a kid and he's going to figure out how to hold the bat, but there's actually a way to line your knuckles up and a way to make it where you have the most torque to the bat, right? Most follow through. When you roll your wrist over, the bat goes. And so there is technique to that. The idea of the elbow, should the elbow be up, down? I know there's all kinds of ideas, but the idea is this: you walk them through step by step. Tuck the chin. Keep the eye on the ball. When you go to swing, make this knob go to where the baseball is, because when that knob goes to the baseball, this part of the bat will follow. And you walk them through step by step by step. It gets frustrating when you're describing that to 15-year-olds. Describing it to 9-year-olds, you think they should have it, right? And so 9-year-olds, it takes some time. And so Logan, he kept practicing and he kept practicing. And I'll never forget, before this came in the final game of the season, and we charged the field, and we all threw our gloves up in the air, and it was like a bunch of grown men cheering at a 9- and 10-year-old championship game, right? Because we shouldn't have won the game. We came back. Our kids, it was wonderful. We were the underdogs. And we came back, but before that game ever happened, we were out behind an elementary school back in a field that didn't even have a fence, right? They put up the orange safety net as our fence. Parents sitting in their lawn chairs, right? Little kids chasing foul balls, and Logan up at the plate. He called it out, and he talked trash. And I fully expected another strikeout with him coming back to the dugout, head bowed as he walked towards his father. Not that time. Not that time. The pitcher threw the ball. Logan made contact. He ran to first base and then to second. And I don't know if it was an error or not, because at that point in time, I probably stopped paying attention to baseball and started paying attention to the smile of his mom and his dad. He got to second base and he was safe. And everybody was cheering. As the head coach, I called a timeout for the sole purpose of running to second base and high-fiving him and giving him a hug. You know why? That was a success for me. Whether or not he ever achieved success otherwise, I know there was a greater moment of success in his life. Because when he made it home, his daddy was right there to give him a big hug. I don't know what's going on in Logan's life today. I really don't. I'd love to tell you that I pay attention to all my 9 and 10-year-old baseball teams, but I don't. He's in Florida. That's when I was preaching in Florida. That's where he is. But I know this much. He finalized his finish. In that moment, in that time, how he defined success, he finalized it. And I'll never forget the simple lesson from a 9 and 10-year-old boy. Sometimes we can get so detailed with what it means to be successful. And the truth is, sometimes it just takes you honing in enough on your success that you have a passion that you feed, that you hold on to the hope that things can improve and things can be different, and you apply yourself to finishing to achieve that success. I will leave you with this quote, and then whether or not you're bored out of your mind, I don't know. I didn't go to 3:30, I'm sorry. But I will leave this with you. Michael Jordan went down as one of the greatest athletes of all time, is the way that it's touted. But this quote has become probably one of the most famous quotes that he has ever offered. He said, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed." I thought, man, that's powerful. Because if you think that success in your life is that things never go wrong, then you have not lived enough life yet. It will go wrong. And you won't get the promotion. And you will get passed up. And health problems will occur. And relationship problems will divide families. But I will tell you this, and I will leave this with you because you know I'm a preacher. Define your success by things that matter in eternity, not by things that are here. Because what's here is temporary. Even if you're not a believer, one day you have to acknowledge at least the fact that you're going to die. And there will be a tombstone that will become faded. And people will eventually forget you. So invest in things that are eternal. Because that's where you're going to be spending a lot of your time. Thank you so much.